Good morning, Online BlogCon, and welcome back to week 3 of OBC14. Today is September 22nd. We're very excited to start off our morning with a photography lesson. We have Bree Hester with us today, and Bree is the blogger behind Baked Bree, which is a food blog. However, she also started off in photography as a portrait photographer. She has spent several hours photographing her big toe, and I've had the pleasure of watching Bree present at 2 mixed conferences, and she takes beautiful photographs of for her blog, as well as just of her family online on her Instagram account. Always smiling faces, beautiful children. So welcome, Bree Hester.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's get into some photography, Bree. Let's hear a little bit how you started. And
Great. So today we're going to talk about my favorite thing ever, which is photography. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about the mechanics of photography, and I'm also going to talk about some ways to get better at photography. I think the mechanics are really important, but I also think that you need to learn the basics so that you can kind of do what you want to do. So this picture right here is recent. My son and my husband at the beach. It's one of my.
We still have you, Bree.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Screen share. It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Can you see me now?
Nope.
Okay. Hang tight. I'm sorry. Okay. There you go. You got it?
It's black. There we go. There's your son.
There he is. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Okay. So this is just me at the beach with my son and my husband, but I take my camera everywhere because the only way you get better at photography is by taking pictures all the time, and it just makes you a better photographer. So I am Bree Hester, and I'm a blogger, photographer, writer, and you can find me at bakedbree.com, and also my personal website is breehester.com. And that picture my husband took because I've taught him how to be a good photographer now, which helps. And so we're going to start by talking about the nuts and the bolts. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is camera choice. One of my favorite quotes is, "The important thing is not the camera, but the eye." So what do I mean by that? I mean that cameras are simply a tool. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you have a camera. So if you know the principles of photography, you can make beautiful images with anything. From a point and shoot camera to a DSLR to your camera phone, they're all good options. The best camera is the one that you have in your hand. I happen to be really lucky. I got an iPhone 6 this weekend. Amazing, like better than any point and shoot I've ever had. So it's the tool that you have on you is what you need to use. People ask me all the time, what kind of camera should I buy? What kind of lenses should I buy? And I always tell them it doesn't really matter. As long as you know what to do with it, you can shoot with anything. It's kind of like if you're a good cook, you don't need the fanciest of cooking tools. You can cook with a meal with a pot and a wooden spoon. So same with photography. So don't get hung up on the actual tool itself, because the tool that we care about is your eye. So the next thing people ask me about all the time are lenses. And they fall into 3 categories. We have standard lenses, zoom lenses, and specialty lenses. For bloggers, and actually anyone, I learned to shoot with a standard lens. A standard lens can also be called a prime lens, and that means it's a fixed focal length. My personal favorite is a 50mm 1.4. So what that means is it's about the focal length of your natural vision. It does not zoom at all. Your feet are the zoom. And I feel like it's the best option to really learn light and to learn composition. They typically are faster, and by faster, I mean the aperture will be wider. We'll talk about that in a second. They're just my personal favorite. I love a standard lens. Some good ones to consider are a 50 millimeter, an 85 are two amazing standard portrait lenses. 50s also are great for pretty much documenting life. You could also go wide angle. So a 24 would be great if you're shooting rooms or just a big shot. A 35 is also an amazing, beautiful lens, and that's probably next on my wish list of things to purchase. The next are zoom lenses, and a zoom lens means that it zooms in and out. So one that I particularly like is a 2470 2.8, and so at its closed, it will be 24 millimeters wide, and if it's zoomed out, it will be 70. So that's a very versatile range. It's a great like walking around lens. It's what I take when I travel. It's really heavy, but it gives a really good general focal length. Another lens that I would love to add to my collection is a 70-200. That is a great lens for portraits. It's pretty much the gold standard for wedding photographers. It lets you stand far away from something and be able to take a close-up. And then we have specialty lenses. Specialty lenses are super fun. They're not always necessary. They're usually like an extra. My favorite specialty lens is a 105 2.8 macro. So that means I can get super close to something and it'll be in focus. Other fun specialty lenses, macros are great for getting small details. So for instance, this strawberry image, I could get I could get as close to an inch to that strawberry and take really detailed pictures of its seeds. They're great for like ring shots if you're a wedding photographer. They're great for capturing really intricate details. Let's say you do embroidery. It'll be amazing to take photos of the actual intricate details. So lenses are a pretty fun way to change what you do if you have a DSLR. If you have a point and shoot, you can't change the lenses out. And this is actually the only reason why I would ever recommend anyone to upgrade to a DSLR is because of the lenses. And this is my humble opinion. I splurge on the lenses and I save on the body. Lenses, you can have them forever. And they are an investment, but they're well worth it. And I do spend more on lenses than I spend on anything else. So that's my 2 cents about lenses. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is aperture. Now, I shoot manual 100% of the time. I know that some people like to shoot in aperture mode or shutter speed mode. I am a control freak when it comes to my photography, so I like to make all the decisions and not let my camera make any. And we're going to talk about the 3 pieces that you need to know in order to shoot manual. And the first is the aperture. So the aperture is the diameter of the opening of your lens's aperture blades, and it lets light enter through your camera lens. So if you look through your camera, you can see that little hole. It opens and closes, and that controls how much light hits your sensor. So that's awesome, but what does it mean? It is what controls the depth of field. And depth of field means how much of your image is in or out of focus. So for instance, this picture, it's a picture of a Caesar salad cup. The cup in the forefront of the picture is completely tack sharp and focus, and that is where the aperture is. So this is a pretty small aperture, which means that the hole is really big. And what happens is the rest of the picture blurs out. Now, if my aperture was really small, that would mean everything was in focus. So a large depth of field means that quite a bit of the image is in focus, and a shallow depth of field means that a very small slice is in focus. So this is a really great way to add some creativity and dimension to your images. And you can only make these decisions if you are making the choices. So here's a picture of common f-stops, which is another word for aperture. So f2.8 allows for less focus, but more light. And f22 on the end allows for more focus, but you need less light. And so you kind of have to play with it. And for me, when I'm shooting portraits, I really like a dreamy, soft kind of portrait. So the person's face will be tack sharp and everything behind them will be blurred. So I would probably shoot at a 2.8. But when I'm shooting food, or if I'm shooting a craft, or if I'm shooting something that it's important for me for everything to be in focus, I usually would stay in the 5.6 to 8 range, which means that I need more light, but we can play with the other two parts to kind of compensate. The next piece of this puzzle is shutter speed. And shutter speed is the length of time that the aperture blades stay open. So when we are hitting the shutter, we're deciding how big the aperture is going to be, so how much light we let in. And we're also going to tell the camera how long to keep it open. And so this impacts how much light can enter your camera sensor. Faster shutter speeds allow for less light, and a slow shutter speed allows for more light. And shutter speed is what gives us movement. So for instance, this image, I wanted to show the chocolate sauce pouring over the profiterole, so I slowed down my shutter speed. I wanted to show movement. And if you look closely where the chocolate sauce hits the surface, you can see movement. And I did that by slowing down the shutter speed. Now, if I wanted it to be a perfect image, completely stopping time, I would make my shutter speed really fast. This is super fun to play with when you're shooting children or things that have movement. So water, a boiling pot of water, or if you're shooting a soup or something like that, it's super fun to play with shutter speed. The one thing that you need to be careful of when playing with shutter speed is camera shake. So when you are shooting an image, I like to stand braced, so I spread my legs about like 2 feet apart and really focus my body. So like stand up tall, stand up straight, take in a breath, and I really like hold my camera close to my body. So I put my arms against my chest and I take a deep breath, hit the shutter. Our cameras can even sense our heartbeat or any breath that we take. And the general rule is your shutter speed should be double your focal length. So if I'm shooting with a 50mm lens, my shutter speed should never fall below 1/100th of a second. Typical rule. We break it all the time. But the one rule, sure, it's the shutter speed should be double your focal length. So if you're using a 50mm lens, your shutter should never fall below 1/100th of a second. That way you won't have camera shake. And camera shake makes it look blurry.
All right.
And then the typical rule is, and this is one I actually don't break, like I'm all about the rule breaking, but this is one rule that I don't break. If I need to shoot below 1/60th of a second, I can do that pretty good because I've practiced for years doing it because I'm super lazy and I hate dragging out my tripod. But if I can't get my shutter to 1/60th, you need to stick it on a tripod because your body will cause the camera to blur. So your heartbeat, your breath, all of it. So that's the typical rule. So if it's below 1/60th, stick it on a tripod. Above 1/60th, you can handhold. But you really have to like brace yourself because your whole body can kind of make the image blurry.
I'm always on a tripod these days.
Are you? You're such a girl. I'm so lazy. And you know, I think it's because I started out as a portrait photographer that I don't use a tripod because I'm used to shooting moving subjects. It's funny, when I do use my tripod, I love it, but I feel really restricted by it. I usually end up pulling it off my tripod anyway, because as we're going to talk about in a minute, like I like to get a million different angles, and I'm lazy. So anyway, the next piece of this puzzle is ISO. And this is what used to be referred to as film speed back in the old days when we shot film. And it measures how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. So an ISO of 100 is not very light sensitive, so you need a lot of light to hit the camera sensor. But an ISO of 3200 is very sensitive and needs very little light. So my picture of the Washington Monument I took at night. My ISO was probably well at 3200, and I actually did take this handheld. So my shutter speed was as low as possible, and I had to find the combination where my aperture would give me enough light to make this picture expose correctly. I live in a really dark house, and this is one of those times when I definitely play with my ISO to expose my picture properly. I will do just about anything to not put my camera on a tripod, so I trust my camera enough to raise my ISO very high. It is a tool that you can use, but there's a but. You have to make sure your picture is properly exposed, because if it's not, you'll get what we call digital noise, which can look like grain. Actually, as cameras get better and better, and they just do, this is less of a problem. But if you do get a little like haze or like little dots, that's what it is. An ISO determines how your camera is going to interact with the other settings. And I just talked about the digital noise. So here's a picture of the triangle. So as you can see, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO work together in a seesaw or kind of like push and pull manner. So if you change one element like the aperture, you need to adjust your shutter speed and ISO to compensate. And for me, as an artist, I always start with my aperture. I make a decision about how I want my picture to look. So if I'm shooting a person, I might want their face to be tack sharp and everything to fall behind them. So I'm going to pick a smaller aperture. But I might then turn around and shoot a still life where I want everything in focus, and I'm going to make my aperture larger, and then I'm going to have to use those other two to push and pull to make this work, because they all need to be equal. And this is one of those things that you just learn with time, and the more you do it, the easier it gets. And like I said, I'm kind of a control freak. I like to shoot manual because I know that I have the control. I make all the decisions and the camera doesn't. And I think that this is kind of the difference between being a really good baseball player and being a professional. I can walk into a room now and know just based on the light where to start with my settings. This is something that comes with practice, but I also think it's the thing that improves photography like none other. Learning to read light and how to make your camera work for you instead of you work for the camera will change your game, I promise. So the next factor is light. Light is everything. And like seriously, like light is everything. It's what gives us shadow and light. The quality of light reflects the mood and feel of an image. Hard light will accentuate shadows and contrast, so that's like a really moody, gorgeous black and white. We'll have lots of contrast of black and white. And then soft light, which is this picture, is diffused and reflected. You can change everything based on the type of light you use. And I think especially for bloggers, like if we're showing off our work, or we are trying to maybe take pictures for an Etsy shop or something like that, it's really important to have well-lit, beautiful imagery. And this is how you do it. It's funny, we just moved over the summer, and the light in my house is really crappy, and it's been really hard for me to kind of find my zone, like my happy spot. And it's actually been great because it's been pushing me as a photographer to kind of change how I do things, because we do kind of get in a rut sometimes. So I'm having to shoot in my garage, or I'm having to shoot in my upstairs office. Like, I can't really shoot in my kitchen anymore because it's so dark. But it's pushing me in ways that I didn't know that I needed to be pushed. So that's kind of awesome. So I want you to, like, look around your house and find pockets of light. So when I first started shooting, I typically use my children as models, and I would take them around the house. Sometimes the best light in my house would be in the bathroom. So I would find them, I'd take them in the bathroom, and I might take a close-up because there was gorgeous, gorgeous light in there. You need to just kind of experiment. When I'm shooting outside, I typically avoid noon sun. It's super harsh. It's very hard to kind of expose properly. As you get better, it's definitely doable. But you have to learn how to work with the light that you have. And sometimes that means using tools to reflect and deflect. Sometimes it means moving things around. Sometimes it means picking everything up and going to a better spot in your house. But the light is everything. And I think that when you see images that you love and you aspire to, probably aside from the styling, because that'll be the first thing, but the thing that's drawn to you about it is the light. So homework, find a spot in your house where you do have some good light and play with it. See what it can do. And come to my house and help me because I'm having a really hard time.
Now, Bree, with since we're into fall here now, fall's first day of fall, we have a lot of people who work full time, and we're going to be coming up into winter where the light, you come home at 5 in the evening and there's no more light.
I have a solution.
Yeah. Are you going to get to using lights? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not against fake light. This is a girl that loves some fake light. Okay. So I hear this all the time, but I don't have any light in my kitchen. Blah, 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 blah. Like, unless you live in a cave, you're going to have some light somewhere. You just need to find it. So for me, I have a little mudroom that has pretty good light during certain times of the day, and I just need to utilize that. You have to think outside of the box sometimes. Another great place is if you have a garage to take a table and maybe move it like 3 feet inside your garage, open your garage door, and use that because you'll have really nice light that's diffused from the building will come in and will be a really nice light source. You're looking for soft and diffused. Like, we're not looking for super harsh, like streaky kind of light. We're looking for like a nice open shade is what I like to call it. Where, let's say I'm taking pictures out on my porch. We have a nice little roof that goes over it. I would put my people behind the little roof because it evens the light out. So you just have to be creative sometimes. And yeah, the 5 o'clock problem is a problem that I have as well. We're going to get there in a second. So there's a bunch of different kinds of light, and we call this directional light. My favorite kind is side light. So it comes in from a side, obviously, and what it does is it highlights the shape, dimension, and texture of an object. And we have shadows and light. It adds some visual contrast. I find side light to be really easy to use, and it's kind of what I've built my personal style around. That being said, I definitely will use some reflectors and things to kind of even it out, but I like clean, and I also like a little bit moody. My next favorite kind is backlight. Backlight is absolutely beautiful. This is a little bit harder to expose because it kind of tricks your camera sensor, but the light is going to be in front of, coming at you behind the subject. So in this image, it's coming pretty harshly from those back windows, but what it does is it highlights things from the back, and you can see the liquid on top. You can see the dimension of the ice. It's really beautiful. And it's great for liquids, sauces, things with a flat surface. something that like might be kind of flat, this will help you add dimension and texture. And something to help you is to reflect light onto the front of the image to kind of balance it. So for this, the light's coming behind me, and I'm standing in front of it, but I might have a piece of white foam core to push onto those glasses to bring some more light. Because what's going to happen is your camera is going to expose for the brightness behind it and darken the subject. So another thing that I might do is I might actually work on this a little bit later in Photoshop and kind of lighten some of the pieces. But I try and do almost everything in the camera because, like I said, the whole theme of this is Bree is the laziest person ever. And I try and do as little post-processing as I can because it just takes more time. I feel like if you get it right in camera, you don't really have to do a ton after the fact. My other favorite is front light. So this is what I typically try and use for people. This is typically what I would use if I was shooting a party or if I was like trying to shoot the buffet, something like that. Front light is gorgeous. So it's easy to expose. It's pretty flat. The light is directly on the subject. So I'm facing the couple, the light's behind me going directly onto their face. And you can tell by the catch lights in their eyes. So do you see how that's my friend Jackie, in Jackie's eyes she has those like white, bright pieces?
Yep.
That is because the sun is in her eyes and we're in an open shade. I did not retouch this at all. Like I naturally made her eyes look that bright and sparkly by just positioning her in a way that the sun hits her eyes to brighten everything up. This is gorgeous when you're shooting people. Their skin tones are even, and even though Cal is sitting behind her a little bit, he is just as perfectly exposed as she is. So this shot, this was for an engagement session. We had to kind of move around a little bit to get them in the right spot to have this perfect exposure. So that's what I would say. Just, if it's not working, move. Move yourself, move your camera, move your subjects until you get exactly what you want. And then it took 2 extra seconds. Now you have a beautiful, beautiful image of them perfectly exposed, light in their eyes, not a ton of shadows. Like we don't have a ton of shadows under their eyes or under their nose. It's a really, really beautiful, flattering light. And that ended up being that was like the last shot of the day, and that's what they ended up using as their save the date card. That's one of my favorites, but the last one. So another thing to use when you are needing a little extra help is reflectors and diffusers. So reflectors bounce light where you need it to go, and diffusers can help take some of the light away to soften it. So this is the typical setup in my kitchen. I don't have a ton of space. I use a white piece of marble, a piece of like $2 foam core from Michael's or Target or wherever it is, and then the piece on the right, which is like a folding, it's like foam core, but it folds in half. It came with my EO lights, and honestly, I don't need the lights, but I could use more of those reflectors because that's the best.
I use science project boards.
Yeah, or you know what else really works well is a white binder, like a 2-inch binder or something like that, because you can open it up and it can bend to hit where you need it to go. So white is light, dark is dark. So if I need to, because sometimes that light would get really bright, I would either tape a piece of tissue paper to the window to soften it a little bit, or I have a black grid that would help me. This is one of the things that I think really was key for me to being good at shooting food, or even anything still. Like I was a portrait photographer, I shot babies and weddings and like all kinds of stuff, and I didn't have to think about it. But when I had to teach myself to shoot food, it was a totally different ballgame. And reflecting and diffusing changed my game. Like, I didn't get it in the beginning that I needed to use some reflectors to help me out. I couldn't understand why, like, for instance, is pomegranates. I didn't understand why one side would look really beautiful and light, and then on the other side it would completely fall off. The light would fall off and it would get really dark. I didn't get that I needed to push some of that light back over, and you do that by using a white reflector. So a lot of times, like when you're shooting portraits, you do that naturally. You'll put a portrait, you'll put a subject next to a white wall, or I'll wear a white whenever I shoot people, I always wear a white shirt because that will reflect back onto the people's faces. Reflectors, cheap, like super cheap. You can do that entire setup for like $5 if you wanted to. One thing that helps is to use like little, like I go to Home Depot and there's like the electrical clips. They're like clamps. They're like a couple dollars, and you can stick one on the bottom and it will hold it up. But this really will change the quality of light that you use and make everything exposed prettier. It changes everything. So Karen was asking you about the dead of winter, and this is when I have to rely on some artificial light. Natural light is always my first choice, but artificial light is also beautiful. I happen to love artificial light, and I think that if you learn how to use it, you really make your life 8,000 times easier. If done correctly, you really won't be able to tell if it's natural or light, or natural or fake. One of the keys that I think about using artificial light is you actually need the light to be a lot closer to your subject than you think it is. It's counterintuitive. You think that, oh, I'm going to pull the light back because it won't be as harsh, but really you need to move the light super close. And what it does is the light will wrap around your subject. So in this instance, the light's pretty close, and it wraps around to that third cupcake. And I use a reflector on the other side to push it back. So artificial light, this picture of strawberries, I don't think you would be able to tell that I used a fake light versus a window unless I told you. There's a couple ways you can go about this. You can use a flash, not the pop-up flash on your camera. Those we should never use. Those are really harsh. They don't really do anybody any favors. I'm talking like the external flash that you can buy at Amazon or B&H Photo. They're usually a couple $100, and they go on top of the jacket on the top of your camera. And the nice thing about those is that you can move the head. So you never put flash, that kind of flash, you know, the like boom kind of flash, directly on someone's face. You need to modify it. So you can bounce it off the ceiling. You can put a diffuser on top. They're really versatile. And when I'm shooting people, like when I was shooting weddings, I never left the house without a flash. They're a little bit more cumbersome to learn, but once you figure them out, they're beautiful. And they're also getting so much easier to use. They used to be where you had to do them in manual, and like that just blew my mind. Now most cameras, or most flashes, have something called a TTL mode, and it does it for you. It'll see where your camera is exposed and know how to compensate for the light. So they're a little bit trickier, but they're really easy to put in your pocket or to put in your camera bag. They're good in a pinch. Another thing you could do is a static bulb. So there's like 8 million videos on YouTube for how to make a DIY photo studio with constant light. And constant means the light source never changes. So you can use, they call them cans, like kind of what like a painter might use if they're painting at night outside. You get them at Home Depot. They have like the big silver dish, kind of like when your dog has the cone of shame. That's what it looks like. It goes around your bulb. I don't love that one as much. I feel like they're pretty hard to use and they're super hot, which is an issue if you're shooting something that doesn't want to be hot, like a cake. The frosting will melt. So they're definitely, and also for people, like people will start to sweat. It's really, really hot. So bulbs are not my favorite, but they are cheap and pretty easy to make. I think the easiest one at this point is an ego light, which is what this light right here is. I think they're about $90 a piece. I bought it on Amazon. They're made by a company called Lowell, Lowell, I believe. I know that Westcott makes one too called Ice Light. What I like about them is they're small, they're easy to store. You can actually take that bulb out and flatten the plastic pieces. They're super easy to store. I actually have 2 of them, and I do recommend 2, especially if this is something that you're going to use quite a bit. One of the things I also like about artificial light is it does provide some consistency. So say, for instance, I use this example a lot, but like if you have an Etsy shop and you're shooting products, it's nice to have the same background all the time. So you can do that really easily with artificial light. Like we don't have the factors that can come in, like if it's raining outside or if it's super sunny or if it's fall. I can shoot this at 2 in the morning if I need to, and it's going to look exactly the same as all the other images that I shot, which is really nice if you're worried about consistency. It's also really adaptable. I get that people love natural light, and I do too. It's absolutely gorgeous, but I'm not going to, you know, what is it? Bite off your foot, spite your face, cut off your hands, whatever that expression is.
Your nose, cut off your nose.
Cut off my nose to spite my face. Sorry, it's early. I'm not done my first coffee yet. I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face, because if there's a way that I can do it that looks beautiful, I'm not going to not do it. For me, the most important thing is having a beautiful image. I don't really care how I got there. And so artificial light is a really good way to do it. And here are these images finished. So those cupcakes, I probably could have put a little more reflector on the right-hand side, but I don't think that you would know if I told you that that wasn't a natural light image. The bars on the right-hand side, same thing. You know, and if you want to brighten up certain spots or darken certain spots, you can do that after the fact in Photoshop or whatever kind of processing software you use. So the other thing that I think are really useful to have in your camera toolbox is foam core in black and white. So like the stuff your kids do projects on that you get at Michael's, $2. I cut them into smaller pieces to work with what I need. Clamps, which where I was talking about at Home Depot, they can hold stuff together. Mesh grids. Mesh grids I get at Michael's also. It's kind of like, you know, when kids are learning how to do cross stitch, the plastic mesh piece that they use, I get a couple black ones. And I like that better than just flat black because you still get light coming through them. Tissue paper is always great to have. You can always, I can use it for texture underneath something. If I need a little dimension to my image. That's just a styling thing. And I also love it because I can tape it to the window and diffuse some of the lights. Thin white sheets are also great for that same reason. And a step stool. A step stool is seriously like the most useful thing I probably could keep in my camera bag if I could keep it in my camera bag. I stand on it all the time. I also, if I want to shoot low, I'll use that as my surface. So that thing has definitely paid for itself. Composition.
Bree, can I step in real fast? We have a question from Melissa. She says, I still use a light scoop a lot of the time after work nighttime shots. Is that terrible?
No, not at all. However you have to get it done is how you get it done. What I think is you just have to be able to use it well. I think, you know, modifiers and some reflectors will definitely up the quality of the image. But no, I'm never going to say no to anything like that. I think that use whatever you have. And for me, like I live in New England. In probably 2 weeks, I'm not going to have light in my house after 4 o'clock. And I still am a working photographer, so I have to make it happen. And yeah, use what you have and just use it well. Does that answer that question?
It does. Thank you.
All right. So the next thing to be mindful of is composition. The basics are we shoot in the rule of thirds. So this picture of pomegranates, I use my crop tool, and the overlay on top makes a grid. 3x3 grid. And so typically you need to have something in a third. So in this image, it takes up about almost all of it except for that 1/3. But you need the subject of the photo to take up one of the spaces. So in your mind, you have to decide what you want to be in focus. Not in focus, that's not the right word, but what you want the subject to be. And this tool will help you see it clearly. I shoot from different angles, so center, off-centered like this picture, from above, and maybe like straight on. So I could lower myself so that I'm at eye level with that teal tray and shoot straight on. Get close and then stand back. I like to have variety. And actually, I do a lot of freelance work, and my clients really appreciate having variety. So when I deliver images for someone, I will probably deliver at least 5 different versions of that same shot. And all I'm doing is moving myself. I'm not moving the food. I'm not moving the product. I'm just moving myself. So when you get really good at the rules, you can learn to break them. So here's an example. This cookie on the left-hand side is about 3/4, so I'm standing above it with my camera pointing down at it, and then the image on the right, I'm looking at it from eye level. Same thing here. Same shot, the only thing that moved was me. I went from standing above something to standing in front of it. And these are just some examples of different ways to show something. So the cookies on the left, I like to, you can see the big picture. A lot of times you group things in 3s. It just is how your eyes naturally go. So it'll go milk, tin of cookies, actual cookie. It's the way your eyes naturally rotate around an image. And the image on the right is the same way. There's caramel sauce brownies, slab, and then sliced brownies. It just gives interest. And typically when you're working with images like this, you want to work in groups of 3 or 5. You want to avoid even numbers. They just don't look right. Something like primal in our brains say, like, don't use evens, use odds. One of the biggest things for me, this is my biggest photographer pet peeve, and why Karen introduced me about having a lot of pictures of my toe, is about focus. So focus is what determines where the viewer will look first. Focus really is the thing that sets apart a good photograph from an amazing, great photograph. And it is my biggest pet peeve because focus is something that's a learned skill. And the story that Karen was poking fun at me about was I was telling at Mixed a few years ago, and I deserve it because this was weird.
It's not making fun. You worked really hard.
Really hard.
Yes.
Right. So, when I wanted to be a better photographer, I noticed that I was suffering with focus. So, for instance, when you're taking a picture of someone's face, I was either focusing on their nose or their forehead, and nothing was getting in focus. And this drove me crazy. I really wanted to focus in between their 2 eyes to get their eyes in focus because we want to get everything in a plane. So what I did was I played this game with myself where I would sit on the floor and I would take a picture of my toe. I would focus, take a picture with my toe, bring my camera back up to my face, refocus, like change my settings, refocus, so that I could do it. I'd have to get 100 pictures perfectly in focus before I could get up. So sometimes I would sit there for hours. I mean, like, I lived in the middle of nowhere. I had nothing else to do. But it made me super good at being able to focus quickly. And one thing that's really helpful is to toggle your focus points. So on the back of your camera, I shoot with Nikon, so I'm speaking from a Nikon user, but there's typically on the back of the camera near the LCD a picture of a lock or an L with like a dot. and then there'll be the north, south, east, west buttons. And that is what I use to change my focus point. So when I compose, I decide where I want my picture to be focused on, and I move the toggle point with the block inside and focus there. And so for me, I push my shutter halfway down, compose it, and then push all the way down to get it in focus. This just takes practice. And when you get good at focus, it makes a huge, huge difference in your images. Something that I notice a lot of times is, like, I'll be looking on Pinterest and there'll be beautiful pictures, but if I look up close, they're not really in focus. And it's just a peeve that I have. I think, too, that this was one of the reasons why I get a ton of freelance work, because my work is consistent, and it's consistent because it's always in focus. So in this image, if you see it up close, those raspberries are tack sharp. There's nothing soft about them. The focus is where it needs to be. I just think that this is one of those places that you really need to pay a lot of attention, especially if you're shooting people, because nothing will weird you out more when you look at an image and, like, one eye's in focus and one isn't. It just kind of throws the whole thing off. So practice focus. Now I'm off my soapbox. I'm going to move on. And we're going to talk a little bit about post-processing. I know someone else is teaching you post-processing, but I do feel like I need to touch on it because I like to be honest. And I edit all of my photos, every single one. You will never see an image on my blog that I have not edited in some way, shape, or form. I use Photoshop. I use CS6. I have CC, but I'm too lazy to really, like, make the change. I love CS6, so that's what I use. But you can use Lightroom, Elements, iPhoto, whatever you want to use. I get a lot of questions from people like, why don't I use Lightroom? It's because I'm ancient, and I learned on Photoshop. It was long before Lightroom was around, and for me, like, I've tried to use it. I'm just so fast in Photoshop, I don't need to use Lightroom. But Lightroom is amazing, and if I was starting now, that is what I would use. And the thing about it is a little bit goes a long way. Like, I don't need a lot of editing, but what I do need is maybe a little boost to my exposure. I might need to saturate a picture a little bit more. I mean, like, deepen the color. Contrast is really big. I might need to adjust my white balance. I shoot in auto white balance, and my camera does a really great job of doing that for me. But I like my pictures to be on the warmer side, so more yellow than blue. And I will fix that after the fact. It's also, I can add a little sharpness, and it's how I resize. I should also mention that I shoot in RAW, and I just do that for insurance. I do a lot of work for other companies and brands, and I just feel like I have a little more leeway if, like, I blow out the whites in a picture. I can go back and fix them. But I typically get it right in the camera because I've practiced for a long time and I don't really have to think too much about it. But I do some sort of post-processing in every picture. So top 10 ways to get better at photography. Some of these we've already talked about, but let's just go over them quickly because I know we're running out of time. But the first is I shoot a lot. Like, I take a lot of pictures and I throw away a lot of pictures. That's the beauty of digital. You know, it's not like the days when we were shooting film and it costs us money. The only thing it costs us now is memory if we choose to keep them. But shooting a lot, I shoot every day. I mean, I've been shooting professionally for 8 years. I still try and shoot every single day. It makes me better at what I do. It pushes me creatively, and it makes me better at my craft. Second, take your camera everywhere. Like, my camera goes everywhere with me. I have more than one camera. I'm pretty lucky. But, you know, you can't shoot something if you don't have something to shoot it with. In this day and age, we have iPhones. Shooting with your iPhone makes you a better photographer. It helps you learn composition and how to style something beautifully. There's no shame in that game. Like, shoot with your iPhone. I love it. It has actually, iPhone photography has really changed how I am as a photographer, and I'm grateful for it. Learn to shoot in manual mode. We talked about this a lot. You have all the control. The camera doesn't. This one's super boring, but read your camera manual. We have these, like, super fancy cameras that can do these crazy, amazing things, but, like, if you don't read your camera manual, you won't know. kind of boring, but usually if I have a question about something, I can go to my camera manual and figure it out. Play with composition. So play with things. Like for this shot, I actually have it on my wall. You can't really see it behind me, but I have the picture on my wall in a different composition. Play with it to see what you like. Learn the rules of photography and then learn to break them. And in this case, I have 2 things on a plate, not 3. Look for inspiration and make it your own. So this picture is a plain chocolate cake, but I saw a beautiful one on Donna Hay, and I tried to recreate it. Find something that you really like and try and figure out how the person did it. Keep it simple. Enough said. The simpler we make it, the easier it is to learn, and then we can fuss it up later. This is really big if you're shooting food, to give your photos a sense of place. So make it look like people are actually sitting there to eat the meal, like it's not just some ghost sitting to a plate of chicken. Adding forks and knives and napkins and stuff gives it a sense of this is where we are. And then the last thing is just be kind to yourself, because we're all learning, and have fun. Photography is super fun. It's also super frustrating, and that's what I love about it. Even now, all these years later, I still find myself getting into creative ruts or hating my work. It's a challenge, and it's one that I think is one of the greatest gifts that I have, because I still love it. Like, I love photography more than anything. I could talk to you about it forever, never, never. I'm a huge geek. But have fun, because you have the power to make beautiful imagery, and I really think that that's how you grow your following and how you brand yourself. So have a ton of fun, and happy shooting. All right, I have some time for questions. Do we have any?
There's been a discussion in the, but it's really about finding their own light. They were having some discussion about that.
Excellent.
Okay, so your aesthetic, your brand are these very white photos.
Mm-hmm.
My brand for Diet or Downfall is the very dark. I don't want to say they're dark and moody, but they're dark and moody. I like the black backgrounds. I like the darker. I want to evoke a feeling.
Which
with my pictures. Pardon me?
I think they're beautiful. I think they're really beautiful.
I want to evoke the feeling of I'm hiding in my closet eating this dessert without my kids, without disruption, without anybody else. So I think that not only the light but the setting as well really sets how that feeling that you want to invoke.
Yes.
So when I look at all of your pictures that you showed here, I got a feeling of this is a big family. It's a very happy feeling.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Not to say that dark and moody is not happy, because I'm very happy.
It was also very intentional. I feel like in the beginning, when I'd been a portrait photographer for a really long time, and I accidentally fell into food blogging. And at the time, I wasn't a good food photographer. Like, I knew how to take pictures. Like, I could take pictures and expose them properly in my sleep. But I had to relearn how to shoot, because it was a totally different medium. And I was looking around, and I was like seeing what other people were doing, and I was trying to replicate their style, which is funny because I didn't even really like it. You know, like I was using things that I would normally not use myself. And I just found one day that I'm like, this is not who I am. Like, I need to shoot the work that reflects who I am. And one of the most amazing compliments I ever got was when someone came into my house and they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm inside Baked Brie, because there's no difference between what my house looks like and what my work looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And the other reason why I did that, well, there's 2 more reasons, but one was that I wanted, if someone saw a picture of mine on Pinterest, I wanted them to know that it was mine. Like, my favorite example is if you see a picture in a kitchen on a blue counter, there's a pretty good chance it's Smitten Kitchen. Like, You just kind of know because that's how she's branded herself. Everything is the same. It's consistent across every post, everything. It's usually a tight shot. It's on the counter. It's kind of moody. It's beautiful. It's well exposed. It's tack sharp, but you know that it is Deb Perlman's. I had that same idea, that I wanted people to know this is Bree Hester's work. It's going to be light. It's going to be airy. It's going to be all about the food. Everything's going to be shot on white. I also did that because we move all the time. We're military. We move constantly. Like, I don't have the constants that some people might have. Like, my kitchen changes. Since I started Baked Brie, I've had 5 kitchens. So, like, this was a way for me to keep some consistency in my brand. And I do feel like photography is a way to brand yourself. And so I got really good at shooting the food that I like, the aesthetic that I like, to make it reflect who I am as a person. So it was intentional. And I want my images to be light and airy, and I want someone to want to come over for dinner. I want someone to get that my family is going to be here. So you got my brand perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you mind taking yourself off screen share at the moment?
Yeah.
We see the shrimp salad here. So as far as somebody new, somebody commented that they just got their first digital camera the other day.
Congratulations. Welcome to the family.
So what would your suggestion be to start, you know, how to handle this new baby, how to work it with it, how to get you comfortable with it?
Well, the first thing that I would do is, it's boring, but read the camera manual. That's number 1. And number 2, I want you to play with it. Like, I'm really rough on my cameras. Like, I don't treat them with kid gloves. I don't even have a camera strap on them anymore. They're a lot more durable than we think they are, so take it everywhere. Shoot everything. Really try to get to know, like, I really want to be a Canon user because there's this Canon lens that I'm, like, obsessed with, but a Canon doesn't feel right in my hands. Like, that's why I'm a Nikon shooter, because I know where every button is. Like, I can have the camera up to my face and not have to look around. So get to know where things on your camera are. Learn where the buttons are. And then just take her out for a spin. Like, take her everywhere. Shoot anything and everything. That is what makes you better. Like, going from a point and shoot to a DSLR is a big jump. There's a pretty big learning curve. Like, for instance, my camera doesn't have an auto setting. I use a Nikon D800, and it's assuming, like, if you're going to buy a camera that's $3,000, that you don't need this auto setting. So, I don't have a choice but to learn to shoot manual. And that is probably my biggest thing, is just to learn what your camera can do. Push the parameters of your camera. Get to know it like it's one of your kids. I don't have to think about it anymore. And the other thing is, I would suggest buying the Bible. We lovingly call it the Bible. It's this book called Understanding Exposure by Brian Peterson. The pictures are a little hokey sometimes. There's been about 14 editions of this book, but it is the best resource I found for explaining the principles of photography. It's like 14 bucks. It's so popular that, like, if you walked into Barnes & Noble, you could buy it today. It's always in stock, but it's on Amazon too. So I would just really learn about the principles of photography and take her out. Like, don't keep her in her camera bag. Shoot everywhere.
I just had a question about focus.
Sure.
So you were telling us how to focus, like you go from your toes to the feet, toes and feet. I mean, I shoot with a tripod most of the time, because, like, once I have it out, I'm like you, I'm lazy. I don't want to, like, put it away and whatever. I'm just like, if I have it out, I'll just use it, and that way I can, like, really crank down the exposure, or the shutter speed. So when it comes, like, even when I have it on a tripod, I'm focusing, and then when I'm doing post editing, like, I look at it and it's like, there's just, like, it's not completely in focus.
Right.
Do you have any tips for that? Like, because I use the focal, there's, like, I think 9 focal points.
Yeah.
So I use
So
them.
one thing that I do is, if I'm doing that, I will make sure that after the first image, when I we call it chimping, where you like look at the back of your camera. It's a weird term, but that's what it's called. You chimp, and I hit the screen to see it, and I blow it up as big as I can to see where my focal length is, or see where my focus is. Okay. A lot of times if you blow it up enough in the back of your screen, you can see that it's not in the right place, and then readjust your toggle points.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a pretty easy fix. But the key there is to catch it before you're done and you've eaten your sandwich or whatever it is shooting.
That's a problem.
So the key elements for not only food bloggers but also all the lifestyle and crafter, you know, things that aren't moving, is really just working on good lighting, whether it be from natural source or using lights.
Right.
You know, and there are a lot of other bloggers out there who have put out their own tutorials on using augmented lights, what they used, how they made their own light room, how they made or light box, I should say, or how they used a milk carton diffuser on their flash, using the light scoop, things of that nature. But I love just getting out and using the camera. I took my camera on vacation, and I came home with so many pictures just because I'm so comfortable shooting my food, but shooting landscape, portraits, things of that nature I found very difficult and very uncomfortable.
Well, I think that that's a great thing, though. It's a good problem to have because essentially it all comes down to the fact that we're artists. And it took me a long time to say, my name's Bree, I'm an artist, because it sounds kind of weird or like fake. Like I had this weird resistance, like people aren't going to take me seriously when I say I'm an artist. But now I kind of say, BS, I am an artist. That's like what I do.
Right.
And situations like that I think are amazing because it pushes you as an artist. It gets you out of your comfort zone. This is why I tell people to take their camera everywhere, because the only way you get better and really deepen your love for the medium is to use it all the time. And for me, that means shooting things that I wouldn't shoot normally. Like landscapes are super hard for me, but it's awesome when I get a good one. You know, like I try to get them. It's not my wheelhouse, but it pushes me to work harder. Like I am obsessed with macro photography. I think if done well, it's like the most stunning thing I've ever seen. I'm not naturally good at it. So pushing myself to do better helps me become a better artist. And when I'm a better artist, it affects all of my work, not just the weird thing that I'm working on. The other thing that really helped me was a personal project. If I get into like a creative rut where I'm really struggling to really want to be with my camera or to really, you know, invest in photography, I'll pick a project that I'll work on for myself. Nobody else will probably ever see it. But it makes me happy and it pushes me creatively. Like I might do one about a color. Like I've done that one before where in my brain I'll be like, I'm only going to shoot things that are red. And I will go around and only find things that are red over maybe the course of a month, and it makes an amazing coffee table book. Or it just sits happily on my computer. It just makes me think differently and see the world differently. And as photographers, that's the gift that we have. We see the world differently. Photography is the best thing that ever happened to me.
You didn't go to school to be a photographer, though.
I am, for the most part, self-taught. I did take photography in college. I didn't major in it. But I also, when I did this was like 100,000 years ago. I'm super old. It was film. So teaching myself digital was an entirely different beast. Yeah, the principles are pretty much essentially the same, but I didn't really fall in love with it again until it was about 9 years ago. Actually what had happened was my husband's in the military, and he was like, hey, we're moving to Canada. And I was like, awesome. You know, like, I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad, but as a peace offering, if you will, he handed me a my first DSLR. And truth be told, I'll tell you this story because this is actually really what happened. Was I had my daughter and I had horrible postpartum depression, like really, really bad. And my doctor was like, A, I think you need some serious meds, and 2, you need a hobby. You need something to do that is for you. And at the time, I had this really, like, nice camera, and at the time, DSLRs were, like, new. Like, I think this was, like, the second generation. And so that's what I fell in love with. Like, I used that to kind of get me out of my funk personally, and I fell in love with photography all over again. I hadn't shot for years between that. But I did always have, like, a camera in my purse. Like, I always had, like, a point and shoot or, like, a digital, like, a throwaway film camera. Mm-hmm. So it is always something that was part of me, but I didn't really get into it until that experience. And I really fell in love with it because it gave me something that was mine, and I got really good at it. And it's funny, like, now I see pictures on Pinterest that I want to, like, I cringe. I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst picture I've ever seen. But it's really nice to see the growth.
Yeah.
Like, even though I was a photographer before that, learning to shoot this different way was really hard. And seeing the growth is unbelievable to me. And it would happen in a pretty short amount of time. So as long as you make the commitment to push yourself, I think we all have the ability to be really beautiful photographers.
Well, thank you so much, Bree. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
My pleasure. Oh, I also wanted to say that if anyone had any questions, please feel free to email, reach out. I'm not the best Twitterer, but I'm really good at an Instagram shout out, and I'm really good with Facebook. So you can find me at Bree Hester on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook at bakedbree.com. Oh, no,
and, you can also tag her in the hangout here with the plus Bree Hester. She does have 2 accounts, so
sorry about that.
The one that I did tag is the right account here. So just make sure that you catch her, and you know, just ask her the questions.
If there was anything that I missed, please feel free.
Yeah.
I'm a dork. I could talk about this all day. So.
As Nance or with myself, I feel like I've grown a lot, have taught myself a lot about my own photography. So I reach out to myself as well as to Lisa and Nancy and Katie. We all started somewhere. We all been learning. So please reach out. I hope everybody had a great time today and has learned a lot. Unfortunately, if you're watching this right now, Heidi sent an email saying that she's really sick, so she's not going to make it. So we're going to rework her session. So we won't be back again until I believe it's 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I think it's 3.
So everybody have a good afternoon, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.